James, let me just introduce James. He is tagged as an academic high flyer after he emerged with first class honors, a gold medal, and 2 scholarships at the NTU, the Nanyang Business School. James left M&A at Deloitte, and he started My Drum School. He started it at home. I'm sure your neighbors gave you a little bit about that. At the end of 2007, and to date, he has 3,400 students who have benefited from the 4 schools in Singapore under a teaching faculty of about 45 educators. He's a gospel drummer himself, and he holds an associate diploma at the Australia New Zealand Cultural Arts, and he has played at numerous venues, the largest of which is at the Singapore Sports Hub with a crowd of 51,000 people in 2005. So he shared a little bit of his journey with me this morning, and I'm sure all of you will be interested to hear from him. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Mr. James Pang.
What is your passion in life, James? You know, I thought about it for a while, and I didn't want to be too religious about things, you know, during my first interview. So, if not, I would have said, I love God, I love Jesus, you know. But it's a professional interview, so I have to think about it. And I thought about it, and I said, my passion in life is music. You know, and then she looked at me, and she said, sorry, you didn't get a job. And I was stunned. In my mind, I was thinking, hey, I just graduated from NTU. I got my first class honors. You know, that's the best you can get. I was 3 years on the Dean's list. You know, what more can you ask for? I had 2 scholarships. I was the top of my cohort. I got a gold medal. You know, I had good grades. I was top of my class. What does it take to be a management associate of Citibank? And she said, well, James, because people's passion here is about making money, and you don't seem like the kind of person that you want to make money. You know, so I was stunned. I was like, that's strange. That is such a strange question to ask at an interview. It's like, what is your passion? I memorized all the important ones, you know. Tell me your weaknesses, what do you know, how are you a team player, and you know, all those things. Tell me your strength, how do you deal with problems, but what is your passion? What's wrong with music is my passion. I was the poster boy of NTU. It's like, what more can you have? I represented, you know, I'm like an ambassador of NTU. I was on bus stops. Okay, that was me back in 2006. I look a lot younger then. Those were the days where, you know, cross colors and baggy clothes were the in thing, right? That's in Singapore, by the way. And I was on the cover of NTU's graduation, right? I was sitting in the front row. It's like, you mean I need to be passionate about, you know, money? So she said this to me. She said, James, you only have one life to chase your passion. Follow your passion, James. You know, and I was just shocked. I left the room. Out of 1,000 applications, I was already at the last stage, the top 25. And I was just stunned. It's like, what do you have to do to get a job? You know, I was devastated. I just graduated, but I wasn't apparently passionate about money. I'll make sure my second interview, I'll just go in and say, I love money, you know. All these thoughts going through my mind. But you see, being rejected was not a new thing for me. In fact, let me bring you back to 1988. Back in primary school, it was a very different story. Okay, you may have heard the introduction that I did well in my university days. A scholar, I was, you know, on the track of being an academic high flyer. But back in primary school, it was very different. I didn't do well in school at all. Okay, I was in this school called ACS. Anyone from ACS here? No, okay. Anyway, it's called Anglo-Chinese School, but people always make fun of us, say that all cannot study. right? ACS. So I didn't do well in school. In fact, I was so bad in primary 1, I was so naughty that I threw my friend's textbook out of the window. Right? And those days, you know, boys will play at the drain. So we're all playing the drain, and I thought, hey, wouldn't it be cool if I take, you know, Fanta grape and just pour over the, you know, one of classmates. So I did that, you know, and I went to the principal's office. My mother was called in. They asked her, what's your occupation? You know, why is your son like that, behaving like that? You know, what's your occupation? My mother said, oh, I'm a teacher at MGS. You know, and if you know ACS and MGS, they are brother and sister school. Right, so it's so embarrassing for my mother to have your own kid behave like that in school. Right, in primary 3, I slapped my Chinese teacher. Okay, back those days you got to understand the context. Nowadays, teacher cannot lay a hand on student, right? Anything, storm you or report. But back in those days, they could actually hit you. How many of you were hit by your teacher before? Right, it's common. You don't get your things here. They take the wooden ruler and they hit you. So this Chinese teacher of mine, I still remember Chen Lao Si, he was like hitting everybody, smack the head, got someone, tap, pull the ear. He like to, his combo, right, is pull the ear and smack the head, right? So you can't get this word, pull your ear, smack your head. So one day I was fed up, you know, and I was the class monitor, by the way. So I felt that I had to make a stand. I cannot tolerate this kind of behavior. So he was pulling my ear, slapping my head, primary 3, and I couldn't take it. I stand up and I slap him back. You know, and he was those like, you know those days where they use gel instead of wax, right? So it was like gel, and then all the way back, Tusen, right? If you watch Tusen Kai, Chow Yun Fat, all the way back, you know. So after I slap, I realized he actually doesn't have hair, but it's like one layer, but he just put it all the way back. So it was really messy. The whole class laughed, and we all had a good time, right? And he said, 冯焕胜, 你跟我去见校长. Okay, Chinese really bad, right? And then I stood up and I said, 你敢带我去，我跟他讲你打我们. Right? Let me translate it for you. He said, you know, James, my Chinese name, 冯焕胜, follow me to the principal's office. Right? And I said, if you dare to bring me, I'm going to tell him that you are beating all of us. And the whole class cheered. AC boys, huh? And then he said, you know, 安静. So it didn't happen. I didn't go to the principal's office, you know, but what I'm trying to say is I was that naughty. And in the same week, I was removed, right, not surprisingly, from being a class monitor. I was being sacked, and I was just a normal boy. I didn't do well in PSLE. I barely made it for my PSLE. In fact, my score was like 202, and that's a very poor score. And to go into ACS secondary school, you need a score of 235 back then, my days. And obviously, my cohort, a lot of us just got borderlines. You know, I thought A, B, B, B sounds not bad, right? Actually, for grades, but it's not. 202 is actually very far from 300. So what happened was, I think the government pitied us. So they created another ACS secondary school. And I was the first batch of this school called AC Barker Road. So it was amazing because I could still be in the ACS family, and I'm given a second chance to study. Right? So this is a picture of my secondary school. I was the first batch. So being the pioneer batch, there are a lot of advantages. There's no Sec 2, Sec 3, and Secondary 4. So we were just the only ones in the school. We were always the most senior, right? We wore shorts. So Sec 2, you still wear shorts. Sec 3, you get to wear long pants. But if you don't get promoted to Sec 3, you will be the only one that is wearing short pants. Everybody else will wear long pants, right? So we're always the most senior. So how do you run a school where you're the most senior? How do you even get things like prefects? You can't. I mean, there's no mentor to help you. There's no kind of like seniors to guide you along. So we voted. It's very interesting. So we all voted who we wanted the prefects to be. And of course, I had a very notorious primary school life, and a lot of people in my class knew about it. So they voted me. I was a prefect in secondary 1. Unfortunately, I don't have a photo because those days we don't have access to phones, and we're not even allowed to bring pager, right? But yes, I was a prefect. And in secondary 2, I was the only prefect that got sacked. Again, right? I didn't get a memo, so I went for prefectorial meeting on the first day of school. And it's like, hey James, what are you still doing here? I was like, what? Didn't you see your name is not on the list? And I was again devastated, rejected. I left the room. I remember I cried. And it wasn't cool for a boys' school to have a boy crying at secondary school too. Right? So my friends took me in and said, forget it. Let's rebel. You know, prefects don't love us. So I did what any other rebellious kid would do. I shaved my head. And that was my story, right? In primary school, I was removed as a class monitor. In secondary school, I was removed as a prefect. And, you know, by the time I was Sec 4, my grades were so bad that for one of my prelim exam, history, I scored 9 out of 100. My friends got 6. It was funny because we were looking at each other. Hey, I got 9. Hey, you know, I got 6. Hey, not bad. Well, C6 is okay, right? No, 6 upon 100. I was like, huh? Okay, I got 9 upon 100. My history teacher made both of us stand up, made fun of us. Say, hey, both of you add both of your grades together. It's not even the sum of your age. And we were 16 at that time. You know, so the teacher was laughing, and he thought it was very funny. And again, I had a triggered moment. Then I banged the table and I stood up. You know, before you drop a subject, you want to make a grand, exit, right? So I banged on the table, I shouted at him, I'm not concerned about my history. I'm more concerned about my future. Then I walk away. Everybody clapped, and I dropped the subject. I didn't take history for all levels, but that was already at the preliminary stage. By the time we got back our results, I remember we were at the corner. I was pulling down my first grade. English, C5. Chinese, E8. Then I was like, hey, that's 13 points already. How to go to JC. I only did six subjects, and I got 22 points. And back in those days, you need at least 18 or 20 points to get into ACJC, because 2 more points for affiliation, deduction, and 2 more points for CCA. But I couldn't, and the worst of all is I failed my Chinese. So you could hear some voices everywhere in the room, people crying, and then you always have 1 or 2 friends that did very well. I got this friend who was a close friend of mine. He did very well. He was shouting, I made it to JC, I made it to JC, I got 10 or 12 points. I felt very betrayed. Sitting in the corner of the room, I was very lost. I was like, so what am I going to do for my life? And that was the first time that I felt so lost. My father actually brought me to ACJC to go and appeal. There was a long line of students. One by one they came out, all rejected. Right? It was my turn. They asked me a lot of questions. They said, Class Monitor in primary school, that's not too bad. What happened? I was removed. Someone else was chosen. I couldn't tell the person that I slapped my Chinese teacher, right? Then, okay, not too bad. Secondary 1, you're a prefect. So what happened? Usually, you stay on and say, Sec 2, again, they chose someone else. Okay, then, of course, the one that they are all looking for. Oh, Chinese, you failed. You can't. You failed your Chinese. So I was very sad. For the first time in my life, I was lost. I didn't have any more friends because all my secondary school friends went different paths. And clearly, I did not learn my lesson. Right? After PSLE, I was given a second chance. The government created a new school. But did I take the second chance? No. Did I learn? No. I could have done well, but I did not. I was in the last class of the express class, but I didn't. It was then that I discovered something. I need to find a purpose in my studies. It took me 16 years to realize that, because I didn't study. For me, I placed fun, leisure, enjoyment, getting to wake up every day, having the time of my life at the expense of my future, at the reputation of my parents. And that taught me a very valuable lesson, which helped me later on in my startup. He insisted that I get my diploma. He said, in Singapore, you need to get a diploma, you need to get a cert. With O-levels, you can't come out and do anything. So because my father studied in Ngee Poly as well, he also went to Poly. He studied business and he became a businessman. So he wanted me to go that path. Anyway, so I just went in. But the strangest thing happened in the first semester. I started getting good results. I was like, hey, this business course doesn't seem so bad after all. I realized I was winning business competitions. I was awarded with book prize. I was even able to memorize 50 cases in business law. It was closed book, so you have to memorize the business cases. And you mean I could memorize? I thought I got 9 upon 100 for history. You mean actually I'm a nerd? I can study, I can get distinction. I topped the whole cohort for business law. I loved it. I love business. I enjoy studying when I find it purposeful. Now this lesson is even greater than the first because, hey, I can be actually successful with this. I can actually get great results with this. When I was in primary and secondary school, there was this very rigid system. It's like, why must I study subjects that I don't get to choose? Chinese, I didn't get to choose that I want to study Chinese. History, I didn't choose that. Why must there always be one right answer in a multiple choice question? Can't there be more possibilities? Can't you think out of the box? Why must you wear uniform and tuck in your shirt, and when you tuck out, you get booked? And that's one of the reasons I got sacked as a prefect, because everyone that didn't follow the rules, I usually just tell them, hey, just tuck in your shirt. It's okay, it's okay. Late a little bit, never mind, quick, I open the door for you, I don't write your name. So my book all clean, right? I never book anybody. That's why they didn't like me, right? I wasn't enforcing the justice. And why can't you talk in class? That's the thing I couldn't understand. My teacher actually gave me a testimonial when I came out of school. He said, James is very talkative. And it's like, what kind of testimonial is that? It's like, you are very talkative, so to write something good. Maybe James is very vocal, he will do well as a speaker, or he will be able to, share his ideas very well. No, James was very talkative. I couldn't take that. But when I was in Poly, it was a different story. I get to choose my timetable. I can actually get to choose my modules. I can choose what I want to study. There is no one right answer finally, right? And if you're in business school that you just need to fight your case, present your facts, and they want you to think out of the box. And I was straight out of the box. No uniforms, you can wear whatever you want. I wore my cross-color baggy shirts, my cap was inverted, nobody judged me. And the best of all, and I think this is probably one of the reasons why I did well, is you are given 10% participation marks to talk in class. Everybody had no questions. I was always talking, and I always got full marks. I never had an issue about raising questions, challenging the theory, finding out more about the subject. So I realized, hey, I actually enjoy studying. It is like something that I do so naturally, where other people are struggling. Then I was enlisted to the army. Okay, my unit was Commando. So it was definitely tough. It was a place where I learned hardship, discipline, excellence, and professionalism. I wanted to turn over a new leaf. I told myself, I did well for my poly. I already knew that I could go to a university. So I told myself that I no longer want to be the kind of person that doesn't do well in academics, right? Primary school, secondary school, I want to turn over a new leaf. I know definitely I'm able to go to a good university. So I really wanted to excel. That's where the spirit of excellence started to come in, right? And in Army, in my Commando course, the top 20% will actually make it to this special course called the Section Leader course. So they make you and train you to be a sergeant and above. And then out of this 20%, they'll choose another 5%, right, to be an officer. That means, down here and above. I think, guys, you know what I'm talking about. So I was one of the few, no doubt, to be in the Commando Section Leader course, 20%. And I was one of the first few to be selected to be an officer. But one day, they were recruiting regulars in the army. Who wants to sign on, that kind of thing. And the next day, I was told to march back. Actually, all the officers that were selected already gathered, but I was told to march back. Two of us were marching back, and we actually saw another two soldiers coming in opposite directions, and they were smiling. I know something was wrong. And I was told that I got dropped off the list because one of my obstacle course timing, the 10K obstacle course, was the last two or the lowest, and they were trying to bring two more people in. After that, I realized that those two people wanted to sign on in the army, and the trainers actually bumped them up. They had the power to decide who goes through. So I was very angry. I lost my motivation, because how could a system or this kind of biased decision making ruin my path? I was so bad that they transferred me out. They say, who wants to go and be with a recruit company? And nobody wants to do that, because you got to stay back more on weekends, and you have to smell their smelly recruits, right, all over again for 6 months. So, but I volunteered because I just lost it. I didn't want to participate in my mission. I was moody every day. I woke up, I just went to the toilet bowl and brushed my teeth. I was just so disoriented that how could my so-called destiny in life be decided by this kind of system? So what happened is, I realized that I really couldn't fit in a place where I did not believe in the purpose. It was just so strong. I just felt so lost. I couldn't fit in, and I just wanted to get out. I became a trainer, and that was the best time of my army life. I was given permission to conduct any kind of training based on my own design, of course according to the training safety. And I was the only trainer, that did not scold vulgarities. I woke up at the same time of my recruits, because I believe you need to lead by example, right? I changed the system. I stayed back on weekends, because as a senior, I don't have to just make the recruits go and do some area cleaning. But no, I stayed back with them. I participated when they did their proficiency test, IPPT. I actually ran with them, I paced them. I told them that this is a proper way to do a pull-up, and I did it with them. I even invited a lot of them, right? half of them to my church. I enjoyed my time. I found back that purpose. I found that fit again, because I realized that it's something that I like to do, influencing people, teaching people, training people, passing on a skill to people. Then I went to this school called NTU, and this time it was very different, because I enrolled myself. In fact, homework assignments, projects became fun, because naturally I would do well. And I did. My first year I was on the Dean's list, right? I was offered a President Research Scholar, to be a President Scholar. But I found out that you have to do 8 hours of research every week. At this point of time, I was a little bit more matured, and I understood that I really couldn't fit in something if I didn't find a purpose. So I gave it up. Right? I said, no, I don't want to take this President Scholar. So it was a very big thing in school. All the press came, interviewed me, did stories, why do you give this up and all? Because I found that it wastes my time. 8 hours a week, I don't want to do research. Right? It's not what I want to do. What I want to do is to be a tutor, a senior tutor, to help weaker students in their year ones, to help them in their weak subjects. I found more purpose. I found more joy doing that. And I was given scholarships. Right? This time around, another scholarship came, Ernst & Young scholarship, right? No research, just cash, $3,000. Of course, I take it, right? Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, EY. Right? EY gave me a scholarship. On my 3rd year, I got another scholarship by another bank. $3,000 upfront, no cash. They knew what I wanted already, right? And I was on the Dean's list, right? So I could kind of like make my own terms. No research, please, just cash, $3,000. Okay, I'll take it. So I took 2 scholarships. When I graduated, as mentioned, I was gold medalist, right? I taught my whole cohort. They actually chose me out of the whole NTU school to be on the cover of their newspaper prints, their magazines, their poster, the bus stops. Basically, I was sitting in the first row during my graduation. Next to me were all the other kind of nationals, right? And I was like, okay, this is cool. And I remember that my mother cried because all along she told me that, you know, every time it was birthday or Teacher's Day, I always buy her the same present, which is a red pen, because she's a teacher, so she need to mark, and I'm very cheapo, right, very cheapskate, so I'll buy her red pen, and she always say, it's okay, I only want 2 words, and she will always ask, she always say these 2 words, which is good grades. You know, then I always brushed it aside, but the day that I graduated, I went to my mom and I told her, Mom, 2 words for you, good grades. Then she cried, I made a scene and all, you know, but anyway, we took a photo. Right, I was on the front cover, you can see, of NTU magazine. But it was not good enough. What's the point? What's the point of having all these things when just the question of what is your passion, I couldn't get it right. So that was how I was feeling. You know, bringing you through the whole of my childhood, it got to me that, I mean, all this time, I've been climbing up the wrong ladder. So I brushed it aside and I say, okay, I'm not gonna work. Right? I'll just take a 3 months break. I went to Thailand to do some volunteer work, and I came back and I applied for jobs again. And I wanted to really digest what this VP was saying, find your passion. So at that time, the finance industry was very attractive, and I thought, hey, I started reading up about merger acquisition, consultancy, and okay, so I managed to get an interview with Deloitte, and they would usually select, like, you know, the top few percent from based on the audit cohort, people who did that, to bring them into financial services. But the partner I was talking to of the firm actually gave me a chance. In fact, I was just a fresh graduate, and he so-called brought me in to have, you know, give me a 3-year head start. And it's like, that's how much the partner wanted me. I wasn't even like finance or accounts trained. I was IT. Right? So finally an organization that recognized my achievements and paid me for it. So I joined Deloitte. But that was my first job. Didn't last long, just 8 months. And I realized that I was not happy. You know, the idea of going to work where I couldn't wake up feeling happy really got to me. You know, I was doing well. I was about to get promoted. And then one of the deals that I was doing, they had to read Chinese balance sheets. I was like, what? This deal was in China. So Chinese balance sheet is like flashback Chinese? How do I know what is fixed assets in Chinese? 一直做字. How I know? It's like really bad. It just all came back in like, oh no, I am going to, that's the end of my career basically. Right? Chinese fail, E8, basically E16, I did twice fail, and trying to wing it, and I'm not trained in audit, and I need to read the contracts in Chinese. All these things just made it so difficult for me to fit in a system that I couldn't decide what deals I want to take, what projects I want to do. I was under control. You know, I went to a business trip. I was overseas, and every night I would be in my room thinking about this interviewer's statement, follow your passion, James, follow your passion, James. But I told myself I was really passionate in M&A. Then what happened? And I realized that I lost the passion when it hit Chinese. Straight away, whoa, no more passion already. It's like, oh, I don't want to do this, right? And then I go and think about it, and I go and search. You mean you can lose your passion? You know, business startup, they always say, you want to follow your passion, follow your passion. So I thought about it. You can actually lose your passion because passion is basically just a strong and barely controllable emotion. It's really an emotion. So I try to put it all together, the lessons in my life. I need to find a purpose in my studies. I enjoy studying when I find it purposeful, and I could not fit in a place where I did not believe in the purpose. But hey, all these were just, studying, right? What if I switch the word to purpose, and that was the word that I was actually looking for? That if I only have one life to chase my purpose, I could just follow my purpose. And what if I change the word studies to work? And suddenly, everything changed. I need to find a purpose in my work. I enjoy working when I find it purposeful. You only have one life, follow your purpose, James. I came back from the trip, immediately I resigned, told my partner that, he just spent 5 minutes making sure that I made that decision. And after that, he spent half an hour talking to me about my business. And in 2007, that was when my drum school was founded. Now, we went through a long journey, and I feel that it's very important because that was how I built the foundation of my school. We need to have a purpose, right? The vision of my drum school is to be the choice of drum education. You can see that you won't find any other drum school like ours, right? The kind of drum sets that we bring in, the kind of layout that we do, this is our studios, right? And everything we do, we're not in the business of just teaching a lesson, but we're in the business of leaving a legacy, right? And that's why I tell my teachers, in just 10 years, we have been in 4 locations. We have released more than 200 videos on YouTube, reaching millions of views, right? And even in my startup journey, we started with 1 center, and the hardest was sustaining just that 1 center, right? Then we built a 2nd, a 3rd center, and up to today, we have 4 centers in Singapore. We have won national awards. We have appeared in the MRT. Again, I've been interviewed for very different reasons, and the ironic thing is there's a Chinese article there which I can't read it, Anino is Taku or something, right? And the press were just so impressed with what are we doing differently. Okay, so today we have 46 employees, and I believe that I've found people with very similar purpose. These are my staff. We went to Disneyland, brought them around, concert. And maybe just to end off, it is not just about work, I realize. I mean, now in one full circle, I find that I'm happy at work. I wake up every day smiling. And, I realize that if I can put the same equation and just change it to life, we only have one life. Find your purpose in your life. And I did. Right? I got married. I have 4 children. I'm running my business. If you find your purpose in your startup, in your work, in your business today, you should be enjoying it. You should be waking up smiling every day. If not, my message to you is this. You only have one life to chase your purpose. So, follow your purpose. What is your purpose? Thank you.
Thanks very much, James. Thanks for sharing your life story with us.